Hi kitchen, welcome back to my kitchen. And today we're going to be making some banana pudding. Before we get started, I just had a couple of reminders for you. First, I want to remind you that sometime this week, the school board for Kennedale ISD is going to make final approval on how we're doing grades. And I just wanted to remind you that the two grades that you'll be getting each week from my class, one is from the ingredient survey at the beginning of the week, that one that's on there on Monday mornings, and then the other one will be the recipe reflection that is attached to this video. You do not have to do the cooking. That's not part of the grade, but I hope you will, because that's part of our class and why we're here is so that we can cook some food. So hopefully, as much as you're able, you're cooking the food with me, but even if you don't cook the food, that recipe reflection is still that second grade for your last 9 weeks. The only other thing I wanted to tell you is that this next week, we've done dessert, we've done a baked product, so this next week, we're going to do an entree and we're going to do a side dish. So you'll actually have two things to vote on. You'll vote on which of two entrees you would like to try and which of two side dishes you'd like to try. And then I'll take that information. You'll do that on Friday. I'll take that information this weekend and decide what we're making next week as well. But for now, let's go to the kitchen and make some banana pudding. So before we go over to the stove and get started making our custard, I just wanted to remind you of the ingredients and show you one technique that I think is important for this process. Our ingredients are a total of 4 eggs, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, but it's separated. I'm going to use half a cup in the custard, and then I'll use 1/4 of a cup of sugar in the meringue. We're also going to use 3 tablespoons of flour, half a teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of salt, and then just another pinch in the meringue. We're going to use some vanilla wafers and some bananas, and we'll see that layering process for the pudding after we make the custard. To make the custard, the first thing we actually need to do is we need to separate some eggs. Now, I'm going to move these around so you can see them in the camera. And you can see I've already separated 2 eggs here. So I've got 2 egg yolks and their egg whites here. Now I'm going to separate another egg, and when I do that, the last egg, we're actually going to use the whole egg, so we don't need to separate it. All right, so to separate these eggs, first thing you're going to do is crack the egg and let the egg white separate into its own container. This is the one I had that actually had the other egg whites in it. And then you're going to put the egg yolks together in another bowl. Now you can see I have 3 egg yolks. And I have these egg whites. I'm going to take this whole egg, I'm going to put it in with these egg yolks because that's going to all go into the custard. So this is 3 egg yolks and 1 whole egg in here. These egg whites we're going to set over to the side for the meringue later. So in this dish, we are going to combine our sugar, in this saucepan, we're going to combine our sugar, our flour, and that half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to take this over to the stove, add the other ingredients there, and kind of show you how to make this custard. Welcome back, kitchen. We're about to get started on the stove. I did forget the 2 cups of milk in the ingredients over there. I do have 2 cups of whole milk. I'll need that for the custard. In this pot that's sitting on the stove, I have just my flour, my sugar, and my salt that I put in over there. I'm going to give it a quick whisk to kind of combine all of that. And then I'm going to add my egg yolks. And I'm going to kind of stir those in with the dry ingredients. It kind of makes a paste. And you can see I haven't added the milk yet. I'm just kind of mixing it in. If you've ever creamed sugar and egg yolk together, that's kind of what we're doing here. It's got the flour too, but we're just kind of making that smooth yellow paste. Now, as soon as it's smooth, then we're going to add the 2 cups of milk. Now, I'm doing all this cold, so I don't have to worry about cooking this on the stove before I do this. I am not going to add the vanilla yet. If you add vanilla while this is cooking, you lose a lot of the vanilla flavor, because vanilla is in alcohol. So in order to make vanilla extract, they put it in alcohol, is how they extract the flavor. Well, that alcohol will cook off if you put it in at the beginning. Now you can see this kind of looks like an instant pudding mix would look before it thickened up. But this has to be cooked. Now we're going to put this on medium. I'm just above medium, so like just a little hotter than medium. And we're just going to cook this until it starts to thicken. So I've got this on medium heat. While I've got this working, I'm going to come over to my oven and I'm going to preheat my oven to 425 degrees. Now we're doing that so that the final product can be baked later. So we're not going to use the oven right away, but I want to go ahead and get it preheated. Now while we're doing this, I want to remind you that the next step after this pudding is made, and you can even make the pudding, the pudding in advance and let it cool, and then build this later. So if you wanted to do this over a couple of days, you could do this the first day, and then you could do all the construction of everything else the second day. We're obviously going to do it at the same time. Now while this is cooking, and it'll take this probably about 10 minutes to actually thicken. While this is cooking, we'll get our next area set up, and we'll be ready to layer in some other ingredients when we come back. Now when I do these bananas, I have 4 of them. All I'm going to do is I cut the ends off, and then I run a line down the side of it to kind of get the peel off easily. Now you can see, I don't want something that's got a ton of brown in it, but I definitely want a ripe banana. What you do not want to have is a banana that's like super starchy, because this is where you're getting all that banana flavor from. Now, when you cut these, you want them to be, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch. Nice thin pieces of banana. And you can curl your fingers up like we have in class. You don't want to push down too hard. So that's one banana, and then I'm probably going to have about this much of another banana in that. Right here. You can see they're just vanilla cookies. Vanilla wafers are great. And I'm going to go check on the custard, and when we're ready to get this all set up, we'll come back and build it. While we're waiting for that pudding to cool, and you will want it to have it completely to room temperature before you start using it, because it's not going to be as thick as we need it until it cools off a little bit. So once it thickens on the stove, get it off the stove. I moved it into a mixing bowl, and then I went ahead and I put it in the freezer, and I'm stirring it every few minutes just until it cools down to room temperature. You don't have to do that. If you just take it, switch containers, you can let it sit out on the counter until it cools off a little bit, and then put it in the fridge. And like I said, you can use it in an hour, or you could do it the next day, however you wanted to do it. We're gonna make the meringue, which is the topping for our pudding. So we're making a very simple meringue. We're not making a meringue with any syrup or anything like that. This is just 3 egg whites. The egg whites we separated earlier. A little pinch of salt, and a 1/4 cup of just regular granulated sugar. And I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to start by stirring until it's all incorporated. And I'm kind of looking in here to see. And then I'm going to crank up the speed. Now from the view of the inside of the bowl, hopefully you can see this is starting to get light and frothy and add some volume. So I'm just going to keep turning the speed up. Now we're not looking for stiff peaks this time. We're looking for soft peaks because we're going to kind of shape it on top of our pudding.
this is what soft peaks looks like. It just means that, I'm trying to get it up so you can see here. It just means that when I pull it up, see, it's still coming off in like strings, but you can see the actual pile it's making. Now I'm gonna do this for just a little bit longer. What you really want is it not to run down the side of the bowl. So mine's not quite there yet, but you can see that it gets there pretty fast.
I wasn't recording on this one.
And we'll give it just a little bit longer to make sure that it's not so soft that it's runny. And there we go. See, now it's not moving in the bowl. It doesn't move much here, but you can see that it still has kind of a bent peak. It doesn't stand up straight, the very tips of it. So that's what we're looking for in this. It's gonna be nice and sweet and nice and airy. It goes on the top.
All right, so the last step that we're gonna go through is we're actually going to assemble this pudding. So I've got my pudding here, and I'm gonna take about a quarter of it. That's about a half a cup. I'm gonna kind of roll it around my pan and add just a little more. And I will say that my pan here is probably on the edge of too big, so just keep that in mind as you're going forward. You probably want one just a little smaller than this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put some vanilla wafers in here, and you can see they don't have to be perfect. You're going to be covering them up with another layer anyway. Here's the idea behind this pudding. We want layer of crunch, layer of creamy with the pudding, and then we want the nice banana-y layer for the flavor. Now, one thing I want to point out to you, and this may be in your reflection, so pay attention, is that banana pudding is just one type of pudding we can make this way. Because what we can also make would be other fruit puddings. Remember, this is just vanilla pudding as a base. So the pudding itself is just vanilla. I did add that half a teaspoon of vanilla in there after it cooled off. So I could also take that same vanilla pudding and maybe some lemon wafers instead of these vanilla wafers, and some strawberries that I've sliced up, and I can make a strawberry lemon pudding. I could also take Oreos and cherries and layer this in there. You'd have the vanilla pudding and the chocolate Oreos and some cherries, and we could make ourselves kind of a black forest pudding. Okay, so there's some other options here besides just the traditional southern banana pudding, which is what we're making today. So you see I've got my layer of pudding, my layer of cookies, and then my layer of bananas, and now I'm going to come back through with another layer of pudding. And I'm going to come back through with another layer of cookies. Now if you go someplace like a barbecue restaurant and you see banana pudding on the menu and they bring you a big cup of custard with like cookies down the side and some whipped cream on top, obviously that's not the same exact style of recipe as we have here. This is a baked pudding. It's going to have that golden brown meringue on top after we bake it. So it's a little different setup. It's got plenty of bananas, obviously. It's got plenty of pudding and plenty of vanilla wafers. It's just set up a little differently. Now after I get these bananas in there, we're going to do a little more pudding. And I'll be honest with you, we may... And then the rest of the pudding I've got to save for the very top of this, because we want pudding, that creamy pudding on top, so that the meringue has kind of a level setup. You don't have to put the pudding on top. If you just wanted to do 3 layers of pudding and 3 layers and have the bananas be the top layer here, you could. I'm just going to put a little bit of the rest of the pudding in here on the very top after I put this last layer of bananas. Remember, we've already got our meringue made. It's sitting over here. I'm just going to use a spatula to put it on here once I have finished with my layers. Give me a spatula, please. Out of my magical spatula, rubber spatula. And then we're going to, see, I'm just drizzling this pudding all over it. Making sure to get all that pudding that we cooked in here. I'm just going to kind of, not completely smoothing it out, I'm just kind of getting it a little more level so that the meringue have a level landing spot. All right, now I'm going to rinse this rubber spatula off so I can use it with meringue. What I don't want to do is make a ton of extra dishes just to make a ton of extra dishes. So, when we take the meringue out of here, you can see we're just kind of spreading it on here kind of like icing. We just don't want to deflate it, so we're being super duper careful when we put it on here to not push too hard. See what I mean about soft peaks there? Just kind of spreads on here kind of like, well, meringue. Maybe a whipped cream would be something else you can put on here, although please don't do the last step and bake this if you're going to put whipped cream on top of this. And then you can get decorative and you can put a few peaks in here and just kind of run your spatula through. Doesn't look like much now, but later these little peaks, once we cook it, they'll have a little contrast in color because they'll turn brown faster. All right, so I'm gonna go put this in that 425-degree oven. I'm gonna set a timer for about 5 minutes. We do not want it to get all brown on top. We just want it to have some brown in the meringue on the edges. And then I'll bring it out in just a minute and we can see what it looks like. All right, kitchen, it's just come out of the oven. And you can see those little peaks we made, they got a little darker, so it kind of gives a more pronounced look to the pudding. Now, I do have my official banana pudding taste tester here, my son Jacob. And so all you're gonna do here, I'd let it set for a little while, possibly longer than I'm letting it set, but you know, you gotta feed the kids. So I'm gonna come in here, and I'm just getting a spoonful, complete with some of that meringue. Oop, missed a cookie and a banana there, we're gonna get that in there. And then, oh, got some coming down the side here. I'm gonna come over here, and Jake's gonna dig in and tell us how we did. Say it louder. All right, I think we got a winner. Thanks for coming this week, guys. Remember, next week we're gonna do an entree and a side dish, so we'll have a couple of things going on. He's gonna keep eating his pudding, and I'm gonna say have a great week. I miss you, see you soon, and make sure to get your reflection done. Have a great day.
Brings me home.